do it here. All right. So this is the topic that I'll be covering today. QRadar. Why is it a market leader? There are 5, 6 vendors who are, in the top list of SIM market, but QRadar is exceedingly doing well. How is QRadar doing well? That is something that we are going to discuss today. So here is the agenda. Here's a very quick agenda of the presentation. So first we'll talk about layered security, SIM, then I'll talk a little bit about QRadar, competitive aspects, and then Q&A time. So I'd humbly request everybody to please keep your questions with yourself. Otherwise, post them in the comments, and I'll try to go through them at the end of the session. All right. So that is to maintain the decorum of the presentation. All right. Nashwan, you can please go on mute. And let's start. Right. First things first, layered security. Now, when I talk about layered security, what is layered security? Now, this is also known as security in depth. What is security in depth? If you talk about perimeter security, that is the endpoint of your network. That is where your network starts. If you're looking from the outside, that is where your network starts. So if somebody is trying to DDoS you, there will be a security appliance called DDoS protection or IPS that will probably stop that guy. That is your perimeter security. But who will take care of the internal network, right? So that is where the IPS fails to protect you, or the external firewall or the perimeter firewall fails to protect you. That is why you need the second layer, that's network security, to monitor who is accessing the data from internally network, right? From segment to segment, you want to authorize certain people to be able to view contents or edit contents, not everybody. That is why you put internal firewalls into place. But what about the asset, right? Who is still stopping me to transfer data from another asset in the same network? Because I'm falling in the same subnet, the network firewall will not be able to help. So that is why you need the third layer, that's endpoint security. Whatever is happening on your endpoint, you should be able to monitor it, and you should be able to see if anything malicious is going on with your endpoint. That is all fine. We have 3 layers till now, but we are still not protected, right? If we talk about application layer, who's still stopping me from taking some data out of an application and then storing it in other folders, and then later on I'll be transferring it to my email account or something. That is why you need application security. That is why you need SIM and all those things into place, right? So that is why application security is needed. Now we have 4 layers, and that is still not enough. We need data security. So data security basically talks about the integrity of the data, right, and the confidentiality of code. That is 2 of the foundation of information security. That's CIA: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So you need your data to be secured. You need to be assured that your data is secure enough, right? You have database security for that. You have DLP. So you can monitor that if any data is going out or exfiltrated out of your network. So you see, this is what we call security in depth, or this is what we call layered security. Now this is all good. We have hundreds of different types of tools that we are going to place in our network. But if you have 14 or 15 different technologies, how are you going to keep up with the logs? Because everybody generates their own log, and they generate their log in their native language or their native format. Like Microsoft have their own native format, firewall have their own format, and then routers and switches have their own format. Right? It depends on vendor to vendor. Everybody likes to write logs in their way. Now you need one person who can understand everything and put together the big picture for you. That is where SIM comes into picture. That is why SIM is such a hot topic in cybersecurity. If I take a real life example, SIM is like a college registrar. What a college registrar does is it takes attendance for each student on each subject and then compiles it and then matches it to the standard, which is 75% typically, right? And thereafter comes a decision. If you are above 75%, if your aggregate is above 75, you get to appear in the exam. If not, then you'll have to sit this out, right? But to reach to that result, he'll have to correlate all your attendance, first aggregate them, and then correlate it against the standard. That is a lot of work that registrars do, right? So typically, that is what a SIM does, right? SIM is a next generation logger. That's all you can say. Logger is something which only logs events, right? It's a dump device. There you dump all your events and nothing else. SIM is an intelligent device which is able to correlate events in real time. Like QRadar does it in almost real time. There's a fraction of second delay, but that's negligible. That is why we also call it a real-time correlator. SIM is security incident and event management, and that is what it does. Right. I hope I'm clear with the layers of security, why we need security in depth. We just discussed because one device would be, not be able to protect you completely because there are so many vectors of attack. There could be an insider threat, right? And there could be a threat from the outside as well. So to be able to hold all your positions, to be able to protect you from all the corners, you need more than one security appliance, more than one technology involved. That is where security in depth comes into picture. Right? Of course, there's a third wing of GRC which I am not touching. Right? Okay, going to QRadar SIM now. Now what you see on your screen is a dashboard which is taken out from QRadar 7.2.8. Right. So we have 350 different dashboard templates which are available for all the users, which are based on role. If you see the bottom line, that's 350 dashboard templates available for role-based access. What I mean by that is there are different roles in security landscape. There are security analysts, then there are some administrators, then there are SOC managers, right? And then there are C-level people. Right? So analyst does not need anything which is related to the appliance, like how the appliance is doing. This is not related to the analyst. He is more interested in what is going out and what is coming in. How are the log sources performing, and what type of event is he ingesting? What type of event does he want? Typically, right? If there's something that he doesn't want, he can drop it. So all those decisions are related with the analyst. The administrators are more interested in upkeeping the appliance, like what's the CPU utilization, right? Number of log sources which are integrated. If there are new integrations that are to be done, how are they be going to done? And then there comes the SOC manager. They are interested in high-level overview of SIM. How is the SIM doing? How are we getting useful information out of it? Most importantly, how is it helping our clients? Right? How many breaches have we prevented? Right? And all those things. So he's more interested in more visual information than more tabular and more analytical information. So he wants to see some pie charts and bar charts. And of course, he's interested in news, which are latest news on vulnerabilities and all those things, so that he can present it to the superiors, to the C-level folks. Like, so this is what a role-based access has to do. And we have 350 different dashboard templates. Now this includes QRM, QVM, and QRIF as well, apart from SIM. This is something which I will come to later as we progress. But this, just so you know, so QRadar has different solutions over SIM. So SIM is the base over which QRadar has implemented a lot of other solutions which go hand in hand. And this is one of the major reasons why QRadar is doing exceedingly well and is leading the SIM marketplace. Right. So the second dashboard that you see is taken out from user behavior analytics. So user behavior analytics is an application which comes for free in QRadar. If you talk about other SIM vendors, not a lot of them offer UBA to start with. Logarithm is a company which produces SIM and then it has its own UBA. And other vendors, if you talk about Splunk and ArcSight, they don't even have UBA. So you have to rely on third-party UBA. So the challenge that you face when you are working with different technologies is one of the most difficult thing that you'll have to do is log into 3 different dashboards. If you are using a vulnerability manager SIM NASS, you'll have to log into its dashboard, monitor all the vulnerabilities, and then take out the report. If you have ArcSight SIM, you'll have to log into ArcSight SIM dashboard, monitor all the events, and then so on and so forth, right? This is what QRadar does at its best. It has one dashboard and then everything is under one hood, right? You log into one central console. You have your QVM, you have your QRM, QRIS, and then UVM. Okay. So bottom left, what you see is the most risky users. If you see the first row, that is Robert Smith, that is a typical user in an organization, and the score which is written on the right is a risk score. How QRadar decides that risk score is there are multiple matrices, multiple baselines on the basis of which a risk score increases or decreases. The red eye that you see, that means that the analyst has kept him in a watch list, that the security analyst is continuously monitoring this user because he could be a potential insider threat. Why? Because his risk score is way too high than normal. Okay. Similarly, there are different matrices for different users. UBI is something which I'll explain a little bit later, but this is the dashboard, the basic dashboard that you see when you log into UBI. Right. Another fantastic thing that QRadar does is gives you a holistic view of GDPR. Right. GDPR is the talk of the town at the moment, as we know. Right. The latest body that is attached to government risk and compliance wing of information security. Right. The view that you're seeing here is taken out from a latest QRadar, that is QRadar 7.3.1. So people who have already moved to 7.3.1, they know that the look and feel is already changed for QRadar. Everything is changed. The options have been rearranged, and this is what it looks like now. So this is a SOC analyst overview of GDPR, what is happening inside your organization. Plus, it gives you about CPU usage of QRadar, the flow rate, and the event rate that you're seeing. Now, flow rate is flow per minute, and event rate is event per second. So don't get confused over it. Right? Events are events per second, and flows are flows per minute. Okay, so it's EPS and SPM. Plus, you have your disk users as well. So it gives a very nice overview of what is happening with respect to GDPR. Are you GDPR compliant? There are multiple bars to prove it. And of course, you can drill down to it, go to the exact event, see what is happening in real time. Right. Now we'll talk a little bit about cognitive security. We have already talked about SIM, and we have already talked about cyber security and security in depth. But what is cognitive security? As soon as you hear term cognitive security, you should relate it with next generation SOC or next gen SOC. Right? So changes are necessary in SOC as they are necessary in SIM and firewall in all other subsequent technologies in cybersecurity. Why? Here are some reasons. Number of threats are going higher every day. Right? People are discovering new methods to attack organizations. The latest development is file-less malware. Now, the intruders don't even need a file to drop on your system. They can do it remotely, and they can do it without a file. So all the previous signatures which were looking out for a malicious file on an endpoint, they'll have to reconfigure, and they'll have to rethink their design in order to be able to catch these new malwares which don't even use files. As the number of threats go up, of course the number of alerts will go up. Right? So that is another pain point for SOC analysts majorly. Then for SOC 1, level 1 and level 2, both of these guys. As number of alerts go up, you'll have to spend more time looking at the screen, scouring through all the alerts, finding which are false positive, which are true positive, and finally then taking action on the true positive. The available analysts are going down. So what this means is the available analysts which are skilled in cybersecurity, they are not increasing as the threats and alerts are increasing. That is why it's termed as level down. Right? So the knowledge required is going high, of course, as there are new threats are being introduced, new types of attacks are being introduced. You'll have to know about it. So the most popular type of attack is phishing attack, where you drop a file onto a desktop where it has a macro in it. Macro is a piece of code which lets you automate certain things in VBA. But what it does you can also run arbitrary code with the help of macro. So you can definitely make a code that be an administrator first of all, place a file, download it from this domain, place it under C users temp, and then execute it. You can definitely script it and then put it in a macro and then put it in a Word file, send the Word file to everybody. That will totally work. This is why phishing attack is one of the most successful attacks, because they don't even have to do anything. Just send out the mail to you. As soon as you open the Word file, there is a prompt saying if you'll have to see the secure content, click enable. As soon as you click enable, what happens in the background is that macro is executed, and it is a step-by-step execution, and it runs into the memory, so you won't even see any processes until it's too late, right? So that is why knowledge required is going high and available time is going low. The best example that I can give on top of my head is ransomware. Now ransomware does not give you a lot of time, right? So God forbid if you have a ransomware in your organization, then you'll have to hurry, because it will not give you a lot of time. As soon as it starts executing, it will encrypt everything, and all you'll see is a screen where you'll see that send out these many bitcoins to this address, otherwise your files will not be recovered. Followed by the theory which I just explained. Here are some facts for you. These facts are taken out from IBM Global website, so these are facts for sure. 93% of SOC managers are not able to triage all potential threats. Why? Because number of alerts are going higher and higher, right? And they have too much work to do. SOC managers not only have to triage on the potential threat, but they also have to present a deck onto the C-level guys regularly, right? So they have to communicate both ways, and the alerts are getting too, out of hands for them. That is why they're not able to keep up or keep track of the alerts, right? So I'm not going to read out all the facts. It's for you to see. I just wanted to explain all these logo or all these icons which are on the top. And now we'll move on with the slide. Right. As soon as since we are talking about cognitive security, it's worth mentioning QRadar Watson. This is another strong suit of QRadar. This is something that nobody else has even been able to come up with. Right. Now people use threat intel, but those are often third-party threat intel. Right. If I talk about next generation antivirus, the top contender are Sentinel-1, Carbon Black, and CrowdStrike. Only CrowdStrike has their native threat intelligence. Everybody else is dependent on third-party threat intel like Anomaly, VirusTotal, and all those other guys. Now QRadar has their own threat intel, that is X-Force. X-Force Exchange is an open community where you can post if you see any threat which you think is relatively new and anybody else in the world has not seen it, you can post it on that community. Plus, you can regularly visit there and download the latest threat intel that you think will be very useful for you. And I'll definitely talk about that more a little bit later. So I just talked about that to put some context into it. And how QRadar Watson works is, it sees an alert in your organization, it goes out to the internet, search for the same alert all over the globe, and then finds all the similarities or all the occurrences, and then comes back to you with the report saying, okay, I saw these facts, that one malware family is the malware this belongs to. I saw 2 AV signatures, 23 file names, and 22 URLs associated with it. Now this is the global knowledge that QRadar Watson Advisor has accumulated, right? It can go through Twitter, it can go through newspapers, it can go through blogs and everything else that is on the internet. And then it will scour for all the information, correlate it, and then get it back to you within 5 minutes. Okay? And if I talk about a manual effort that an analyst would put in, first of all, the analyst would have to know where to search, where to go, right? And then it will take him considerably more time. It will take him about 25 to 30 minutes to gather this much of relevant information, right? This is not just information, this is everything relevant to this particular threat which you see on your left. Okay? So on your left you see the threat, on your right you see the information associated. That's what Watson does for you. Now, let's talk a little bit more about QRadar. So as I said, QRadar SIM is the basis or the foundation of the next generation SIM that IBM is offering you. Here are some more appliances which are directly associated with SIM, and then you can view it under the same hood as I talked about. So vulnerability and risk management, these are two separate components. Keep in mind these do not come for free, right? They have their own separate license. You'll have to buy them out, but you'll see every activity that is happening vulnerability wise or risk wise in the same console where you were seeing the events earlier. So that puts context into the events. Now your events become contextual events and the information becomes contextual. So you're able to take more accurate decisions on the basis of the information that you have gathered, right? Of course, vulnerability and risk management can be associated with BigFix. BigFix and endpoint protection, which is more like SCCM. So SCCM, I think, is something that everybody is aware of, which keep track of all the endpoints, and it can push new patches or new softwares onto the endpoint. So with the help of this, imagine what you can do. You can create a rule into QRadar. Say, if I see a particular vulnerability on the asset, you can go to the next tab in the rule action. You can say that, okay, since I have BigFix with me, what I'll do is apply the patch immediately. And that's it. You'll never have to look back to that thread again. Wherever QRadar will detect that particular vulnerability, it will reach out to its friend BigFix. BigFix will go out to the internet, find the relative patch, and then apply the patch successfully on the endpoint. So here you have solved a very big problem in one go, and then you'll not have to go at it again later. That's what QRadar can do for you. Network behavior. So network behavior is something which Splunk can give you, as well as ArcSight. Not a lot of people give you network behavior, but these are the top contenders. But QRadar has an edge here, which I'll talk in a little bit. Right. Network behavior is similar to event behavior. It just deals with the flows, like the net flow, Q flow, J flow, and super flow. Okay. So next thing we have threat intel. This is something which I just talked about. Threat intel is the open source community that X-Force has created, and their regular information about new threats are posted, or if there is any update on an existing threat, that is also updated there. You can leverage that into your organization. Doesn't matter if you use QRadar or not. You can still leverage that information, bring that information into your environment, and protect yourself. That's a proactive measure that a lot of people have started taking, and that is one of the main indices of next generation SOC. You'll have to have your threat intelligence into place. Then we have security apps. Now let me tell you a fact. More than 30 different vendors like Cisco, Palo Alto, Anomaly, so on and so forth have come up and then shook hands with QRadar. They have created a collaboration model. So QRadar has an app store, which is something that a lot of other SIM doesn't have. Logarithm is a name which I remember. It has its own app store, but it is relatively new, and there are not a lot of applications. But ArcSight and Splunk do have their store, but they have limited number of applications there. QRadar has the largest community in terms of third-party collaboration. So people have come up and then they have created their application. So what you can do is download that application and then you can view certain things directly into QRadar. If I'll have to take an example, if you have Palo Alto in your organization and URL filtering into place, so you can download an application for Palo Alto into QRadar. Now you can see all the suspicious URLs, risky URLs, which are being hit from inside your organization directly onto QRadar. So that gives you a lot of advantage over generic SIM, where you'll have to rely on the network administrator. So he'll be only able to fetch the information from the firewall and then give it back to you. Now you do not need him. If you have eliminated one more person from the picture, that means you have saved time and effort both. Okay. Now, QRadar Network Insights. This is related with network behavior. You can say that this is an enhancement of network behavior. What QRadar Network Insight do for you is you can detect phishing right from QRadar if you have Network Insight in place and if you have your emails coming into QRadar. You can detect if any data at all is being exfiltrated to a bad domain directly from QRadar. Do not need DLP for that, right? You can replace DLP, you can replace email security to a certain extent. Right? It cannot do email security, but it can detect phishing attempts for you. Okay, and I'll explain it in a bit how you can be certain that it can see phishing attempts and DLP. So we'll come to that in a bit. QRadar incident forensics. So how this works is, if there is an audit and then you know that something bad happened, there was an attack which happened successfully, or there was some data being exfiltrated out. So now you'll have to put a timeline to it, how this happened, when it happened, and who did it. To answer these questions, you need forensics. How QRadar incident forensics can help you? Nothing. You'll have to take all the events out in a PCAP format, upload it to incident forensics, and then it will give you a lot of dashboards to work with and a lot of visual aid to work with. So it comes in very handy when you have a forensic in question, or if you have a forensic question in place from the auditor. Then comes the Watson Advisor, which I just talked about, so I'll be skipping it. Then comes I2 Enterprise Intelligence. Now this is not directly related to cybersecurity, because what it does is it analyzes all the data coming in from all the assets. Okay? So it's like analyzing big data, which is coming in from all your IoTs, from all your assets, from all your devices, and then putting a picture together, and then you can consume that feed directly into QRadar to make new correlation rule and then fire more offenses with it. So this is what the complete picture looks like. This is what IBM is offering you, and the best thing is everything is under the same hood. One console to access everything. Except I2 Intelligence and BigFix. Those are two different modules. But yeah, except those, everything is accessible from one console. And I've not talked about QBA here, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So that is how, okay. And the last thing is resilient incident response. So resilient incident response is the replacement of Snow, that is ServiceNow, or Remedy, or any other ticketing tool that you guys might have in your organization. But the scope is limited to security events, or SIRs, right? So what it gives you is Resilient is a different company, or there's a separate company which IBM has taken over. So that is a little bit of history about Resilient. It comes up with predefined forms or predefined templates about different types of incidents. Like if there was a laptop which was stolen, if there was a phishing attempt which has happened, if there was a data which was exfiltrated, or a malware which was installed on a machine. So you have 4 different templates for all these, and you can absolutely edit them out according to your needs. As you see them fit, you can edit them out and then use it in your everyday ticketing. Right? So, now QRadar Network Insights, as I promised, talk a little bit about QRadar Network Insights, then we'll go ahead. Of course, what it does is first of all, it utilizes flows and not events. It has everything to do with the flows, right? So if you have flows coming into your QRadar SIM, so you can be certain of most of the things which you cannot from events. Like events can only tell you that something is happening, like a network connection is established, somebody went to a website. But what did he carry? Or what did he send, or what did he receive from the website? You cannot determine that with the help of events. To know that, you'll have to look into the payload. You'll have to go deep. How do you do that? With the help of flows with QRadar Network Insights. So what it does is, it's a basic enhancement for network behavior. So there is a tab right next to log activity, there's network activity. You go there, and then you'll start to see all sorts of malicious activities that are happening if you have flows coming into picture. So Qflow, NetFlow. NetFlow is the most basic form of flow, which can only give you information about who's the source, who's the destination, what is the ports which are being used, what is the amount of data which is being sent, the size of packet which is being sent. So still doesn't give you a very clear picture, right? I mean, you can guess that something is happening, but you cannot see the whole picture. The second enhancement is Qflow after NetFlow. Qflow gives you a little bit more information than NetFlow has. So its payload is a little bit bigger. It has more parameters to work with, right? So it gives you more freedom to work on the flows. Then third comes your uh, there were three types of flows. So Superflow is one of the flows which has, when you have a many to one situation or one to many situation. So there are three types of flows: type A, type B, type C. You can consume that directly into QRadar. So if you have flows coming in into QRadar, then you'll see the complete picture. Then you will actually be able to see the payloads. Like if somebody sent an email to somebody, you'll actually be able to see the content. Right? That is one thing. If somebody is exfiltrating data, what is he trying to exfiltrate? The exact data that you'll be able to see because the payload is available into QRadar. So if you empower QRadar with the flows, so there is a whole lot that you can discover that was not you're not able to discover with events. Another example which I can take is, so let's go to the next slide. So here are some basic use cases which you can deploy with the help of network insights. So this can help you in threat detection, threat hunting, and then uh, compliance as well. So if you see the second option on your left is phishing email and campaign detection. The prerequisite, of course, is you'll have to have the emails coming in, and then you'll have to have your flows, the outgoing and the incoming flows coming into picture. If you have both these things coming into QRadar, you can be certain if there was a phishing attempt. How it happens, it's actually very interesting. So QRadar takes a look at the phishing email, and then it strips out the attachment. If there's a URL embedded to it, it strips out the URL, goes out to the internet with the help of threat intel, that's its third body. It takes a look at the reputation of the URL, comes back saying, hey, I saw the reputation of this URL, it is considerably bad. Right? A lot of antivirus deem it as malware and phishing website. So we are going to declare this as a phishing email because it has a URL which is very bad. So some indicators could be it is being hosted over HTTP, not HTTPS. So it doesn't have any certificate. That's one of the clear indications which you can look for if you're doing it manually. And of course, there are some websites which you can refer to phishing analysis. If you don't have QAnon, you can still do phishing analysis. There are some websites which I can suggest you. So if anybody is interested in phishing analysis, you can definitely contact me later on, and then I can suggest you some URLs which are very handy, which are very useful. So UBA. So how UBA works is it consumes both events and flows. Right. First of all, if you don't have flows, you'll have the basic deployment of UBA. So the prerequisite for UBA, however, is AD integration. If you don't have AD integration, the UBA will not work in the first place. Once you have the AD integration, now UBA application can see all the users who are residing in your AD, right? Then if you have the firewall logs with the usernames into it, right? The next generation firewalls give you the usernames with the logs which are going out or which are coming in. Now you can see which user is accessing which website. So that's the second level or the incremented analysis that UBA can do for you. And of course, if you have your threat logs, if you have your IPS logs, if you have your flows, then you can definitely assess everything that the user is doing from an endpoint. If he's trying to access another endpoint, transferring some files or receiving some files from the internet. So you can see everything from UBA, and then at the end of the day, UBA can give you a risk score on the basis of which you can take certain decisions. Is this user an insider threat or not? Right? So I'll not be able to go through all these use cases. It will take too much of time. Okay, let's talk a little bit about data exfiltration through DNS. Now, so DNS is one of the protocols which is not explored a lot. That's what I think by security analysts, right? And a lot of people don't even take DNS entries into their SIEM to begin with. A simple reason is there is too much of information, right? But here's what can happen. So if somebody can access your one of the DNS servers, what he can do is he can put a false DNS entry into your DNS register, your DNS server. And every time when you try to go to, say, facebook.com, you go to your local DNS, there he has written that, okay, rewrite this URL from Facebook to http://xyz.com, and then you will be taken to xyz.com. It doesn't matter how you try to access it, you will end up on xyz.com. That is one thing. Second thing, what I can do is, if I'm inside the network, what I can do is I can create multiple queries to a random domain, okay? And then I can divide the information that I have in very small chunks and then send them through DNS queries. My firewall will not see it, IPS will not see it, nobody will see it because they are DNS queries, right? They happen all the time. So if you go to google.com, if you go to your browser, type google.com, a simple DNS query is generated. It goes to a local DNS, then it goes to your global DNS, comes back with the IP, and then you can see the web page. So it happens all the time. It's necessary thing so that internet can work actually. What I can do is create small child domains to the parent domain, and then how I can send information is, if I have to send a sentence like, I will meet you at 8 today, what I'll do is, I will.google.com, this is my first query, meetyou.google.com, my second query, today at 8, my third query. So I've sent 3 DNS queries, and I've sent out the information which he can extract. And believe me, this can be scripted, and whole files can be broken down in very small chunks and then sent out, right? Because at the end of the day, everything is 0 or 1 binary. So if you are pretty good with Python, you'll know what I'm saying. You can divide a file into small chunks, and then you can attach them to a child domain, to a parent domain, and then you can send out the DNS queries. You can automate it, and there is nothing else that you'll have to do. Best thing is, nobody will be able to even sense it because they are DNS queries, right? So data exfiltration might be happening today as we speak in your organization, and you're not even aware of it. Why? Because you're not even consuming DNS into your SIEM. So this is what DNS anomaly talk about, right? I hope this would be able to help out you. So what I'd request everybody is go back and do some research on DNS attacks. See how you can mitigate those DNS attacks. This is one thing that you should definitely do. Phishing analysis is something that you should also be very mindful of. Do it, and then I can definitely connect with you guys on both these topics, plus UB also. So if anybody wants to talk with me on these, I'm completely available. All right, let's move on. So one slide on network forensics or incident forensics. I already described how it does, what it does. It ingests PCAP files, right, which are collated information about something which happened. So you're giving it all the events started from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. because you know that roughly in these 2 hours an attack happened. What you do is you dump everything onto incident forensics, and then it will do its job and then give you a lot of dashboards to work with. So be very mindful that it will not give you the result directly, right? You'll have to scroll through the events which you have inserted, but it makes your job a whole lot easier because you are, seeing things visually and not just going through raw events one by one. So it makes your job a whole lot easier, right? And sometimes it can give you direct results. That depends on case to case. Right? Now let's talk a little bit about QRadar architecture very quickly, then we'll move on. So if you talk about a 1,000-feet view or a very high-level architecture view, this is what the architecture looks like. 3 components, no fuss, not very complicated, very easy to install. Now, be mindful that the collector is shown as one device, but those are actually 2, right? One is event collector and one is flow collector. You cannot do both from one machine, so there are 2 machines, and that is why you see 2 colored lines. One is blue and the other is purple, right? Then comes the second tier of the architecture, that is the brain of QRadar. That is where the correlation happens, and that is where the storage of events happens. So the service which is responsible for correlation is ECS EC. which is responsible correction is ECS EC, right? And all of the services are governed by host context, that is the master or that is the parent service. So if you are an administrator on QRadar, you can probably connect with me here. So just a tip, if you see anything which is going wrong onto your appliance, and if you want to shut down the services, the order should be the Docker service should go down first, then ECS EC, ECS EP, HTTP daemon, Tomcat, host services, and then host context. So this is the order, right? Then comes the third layer of the architecture, that's your web console. So web console is where the Tomcat server resides. That is why you can see all what you can see onto QRadar. That is due to the Apache server that you have on the console. Now console can do the collection, console can do the correlation, storage, and it has the Tomcat server. Right? EP can do collection and event processing. It doesn't have the Tomcat server. Okay. And if you come to the third or the bottom level, that is EC, it's a dumb device. It can only collect events or flows and then format them in a certain way so that EP has ease to correlate them and then send them out forward to EP. That is all that EC does ever. Okay. On your left, there are some facts which describe this high-level architecture. Right? So ease of use, architecture, data sources, data reduction. Right? So I've talked about all these except data reduction. How data reduction happens is there's a technical term called coalescing. What coalescing means is if you're seeing events with similar properties within a 10-second window, if there are more than 4 events with similar properties within a 10-second window, so everything will be stitched together. So coalescing is literally stitching. So how you stitch up is you stitch up loose ends to create a whole thing, right? So you stitch up all the events into one event, and then you can see it into log activity. There's a column called event count. Right? If there were more than 4 events, you'll see an increased count there. Right? So it's highly recommended for firewalls, for IPS, for network devices. It is not recommended for Windows and Linux. So for people who are fairly new with QRadar, here's a tip for you. When you start working with QRadar log source integration, coalescing is something which is by default enabled for all the log sources. Right? So my recommendation is you should disable it for Windows and Linux servers, because in the backend, what it does, it compares source IP, destination IP, username, QID, these fields, right? So if you talk about a Windows server, most of the times it will not have a source and destination IP. When it will not have an IP, QRadar gives the local IP or the log source IP to both these fields. Okay, and that is why both these fields will be, deemed similar, right? Because if there are 4 events inside 10 events, everything will going to have the same source and destination IP. Why? Because QRadar works is this way. So there is a very high chance that some useful information will be coalesced or will be lost. So that is something which you should go back and take a look at, right? Okay. The only thing which I wanted to talk about here is QRadar has 2 different databases. One is PostgreSQL database that is solely used to store the configuration which is happening on the web console, and the second is the Ariel database. That is where the data is stored at rest. So in my last session, somebody asked if the data is encrypted or not. So the data at rest is encrypted. It is zipped, right, and then encrypted. So how QRadar works it creates one file for each minute. It takes everything which is coming in from all the log sources, makes one file, puts everything in that file, zips it, and encrypts it. And now it is stored in the Ariel database. So yes, the data is encrypted. That was the answer. Right, let's move on. So this is another high-level view to kind of make you aware of what is happening with QRadar. If you talk about cognitive aspect, if you talk about security analytics, that is something which QRadar gives you, which all the other things are not able to come up with. Right? Machine learning. This is one aspect which comes for free with user behavior analytics. If you have UVA installed, you'll have machine learning as well. What machine learning requires is, it requires the endpoint logs, of course, which can also increase your EPS by a very big factor. Okay, so be very mindful. So it's a trade-off actually. How much information do you want in your sim versus what's your EPS and how much do you want to push it, right? Because sim is as good as the events come into sim. Okay. Powerful search, what that means is, if you go into log activity, there's a quick search and then there is a aerial search. So a quick search will do a search for you and then it will directly relate what you have written there in the bar to all the indices. So QRadar has 20 indexes by default: source IP, destination IP, username, QID. Of course, you can increase the indices or decrease the indices according to your needs. So that is how the powerful search works. You have behavior analytics and AI as well. AI is Watson, of course, with the help of which you can do your threat hunting. So all these amazing things which I explained in the last 10, 12, 15 minutes, everything happens in one hood, everything happens in one console. So that is the best thing. That is the thing which I like about QRadar. Right. So we are done with SIM, we are done with QRadar, and this would be the last topic of the agenda: competitive aspects. How QRadar stands in a head-to-head situation with the top SIM contenders. Right. So let's take a look. The first comparison is with Splunk. Okay. So as the heading says, the capabilities which are available with QRadar and not with Splunk. Now, this does not demonstrate that the Splunk is weaker than QRadar. Of course, Splunk has its own advantages. Right? So one of the best thing about Splunk is it can ingest anything. Right? You can give it machine data, you can give it events, you can give it anything. Like, what's the CPU usage in my Linux device? You can directly ingest it into Splunk, and it will not complain. It will, compile it, correlate it, and show you the results. QRadar is not able to ingest everything. SIM can take in events, and then flows can take in flows. So a little bit about Splunk, that is the positive side of Splunk. The other thing which I like about Splunk is the app store is fairly good. It has a lot of collaboration, some of which are not available with QRadar, but I'm sure QRadar folks are working on it. So the example which I can take on top of my head is SecureAuth, that is your multi-factor authentication. There is an app available in Splunk, but not in QRadar. So that's a little bit about Splunk. Now, coming back to QRadar, app analytics, network forensics, UBA, top features which QRadar gives you, which Splunk will not, right? Not as of now. They might develop it going further, but as of now, they do not give you these, features or these modules. Real-time vulnerability scanning and risk management, that's QRM, and then QVM that we are talking about here. So those are different modules, not for free. UBA is for free, but QVM and QRM have their own cost. But it's nice to have QVM and QRM with SIM because you'll have contextual data. That is what I explained before. On your right, the picture that you see is taken from Gartner. That is the latest SIM quadrant. Right? So IBM is leading, and there is Splunk not very far behind, and the third is LogRhythm. And then we have ArcSight, which is fairly left behind. So we'll talk about LogRhythm and ArcSight, and then we'll quickly move forward. Second comparison, LogRhythm or LR. LR guys are doing very good recently. They have developed their UBA, right? User Behavior Analytics, which is very good. They have their app store, so they are already upping their game. Right? They are coming with new features which are competitive to QRadar, but they are not able to match up to QRadar as of now. So they don't have DSM editor. So a lot of security analysts and administrators are in love with DSM editor. Simple reason is you no longer need to write LSX, that's log source extension. Right? That will be a big XML file. They'll have to write down a code to compile logs coming in from a particular log source. You'll not have to do it anymore. Select the event in log activity, click on action button. The last option is DSM editor. Go into it and then parse everything right there. It's visually very good and very easy to do it. Right? So This is one of the strong suits of QRadar as well. So LR has API, but they don't have App Store. They have it. It's fairly new. There is not a lot going on there. So that is why they say that they don't have it. So they don't have historical correlation. That's a very big disadvantage that LogRhythm has. A lot of times there will be a requirement from your SOC manager or from your audit manager saying, okay, something, you have the events for the past 20 days. You'll say, yes, I have it. So now we have a new threat which has come into picture. I want you to correlate those events again against this new threat and see if you find anything, right? So you cannot do that in LogRhythm. So that's a big no. This is what QRadar gives you. Of course, it doesn't have QVM. It can ingest third-party data from Nessus, from Qualys, from Rapid7. Yes, it can do it. It's very good, but it doesn't have its native vulnerability manager, right? The third comparison, HP ArcSight. HP ArcSight was doing exceedingly well up till now. One of the major disadvantages for HP ArcSight is it's very heavy, first of all. The second thing is the architecture is fairly complex. I've got some idea about HP ArcSight. And then the price will always come into picture. It's very costly, the most costly SIEM that you'll see in the market. Now, good thing about HP ArcSight, you can create correlation rules, extremely complicated correlation rules with ease. There are a lot of connectors available and or not, or you can work with the connectors, create the correlation rules from scratch, right? So back into QRadar, there are statements which you'll have to import into your rule and then work with them. So say if there is an AND statement in a test condition, you cannot change it to OR, right? Because that is a statement which is hard coded into QRadar. But HP ArcSight gives you that flexibility that you can play with the settings, you can play with the connectors. So that is the good thing about HP ArcSight, which I like. Of course, they don't have Watson. Nobody has Watson rather than QRadar. They don't have Q1i equivalent. So this is QRadar Network Insight we're talking about, which I just talked about 15 minutes ago. So they also have introduced their application store, but this is also comparatively new. Right? So not a lot going on there as well. They are mostly into development, but yes, this is available for public, but with a very less number of applications. Okay. The first point talks about vulnerability manager. They don't have their own or their native vulnerability manager, right? So these are the few points which QRadar exceeds when talking with respect to HP ArcSight, right? The last topic is community edition of QRadar. So this is a very good news for all the QRadar analysts out there, for all the QRadar administrators as well. Community edition comes for free, no charge. So it's a 2 gigabit file. You can download it from IBM Fix Central, right? Not functionally limited. What it means is you can use any correlation rule that is available in the Pro software. The only restriction that you're going to see is the EPS and SPM, that is 50 EPS and 5K SPM. More than that will be dropped, okay? So they also have their software version, right? So if you have CentOS operating system in your VM, you can download the software and then you can download the binary and then execute it onto that OS and install QRadar. Right? Plus they have their complete ISO as well. So both these options are available. Right? Only requires 4 gigabytes of RAM. That's another ease which it gives you. So you can install it on your laptop. Right? You do not have to go to market search for 12 GB, 16 GB RAM. So if you have 4 GB RAM dedicated for a VM, you can fit QRadar right into it and start working with your use cases, right? So yeah, the last but not the least, it's only SIEM. No QVM, no QRM, no QRIF, nothing else, right? But QBA will be there if you want it, okay? But keep in mind that QBA consumes at least 800 MB to start with, and if you have comparatively bigger Active Directory, it will go up to 1.2 gigabytes of RAM dedicated for UBA. Right? I just wanted to talk about that. Right. The last slide. So three things which I wanted to talk about very quickly. Sysmon. Sysmon is something which I think everybody should go back and look at. Sysmon is a free utility by Microsoft. So there is a pack of utility called sysinternal. You can download it for free. Sysmon is just 1.4 megabytes and very small. What it does for you is it enhances the security logs. It puts a lot of parameters into security logs which are not there. And if you're running with QRadar, there is a Sysmon pack. You install it. If you install it, there are 17 use cases which you get with Sysmon, right? So you can see registry changes, you can see file edits, right? And you can see boot level changes, kernel level changes, all those activities which are happening on an endpoint if you have Sysmon and if you have endpoint events coming into QRadar. Stix and Taxi. Stix and Taxi are type of feeds, right? These are type of open source feeds. They are basically open source frameworks developed and open for public. QRadar utilizes both these feeds, right? Taxi feed is something which you can import into QRadar if you have thread intel. People who have thread intel, they would be knowing Taxi feed. Stix is another type of feed. So if you have something which, as I explained earlier, if you have something in terms of indicator of compromise, say IP address, URL, hash, or anything which you think relates to a threat which is relatively new, you can include it in a Stix feed and then publish it online so that everybody can take benefit of that. Right? Security appliance evasion. So security appliance evasion is a lot of malwares have become very intelligent and they know how to evade a security appliance. Like nowadays, malware has sandbox evasion techniques, right? How they evade sandbox is, what sandbox does it, if you throw a malware or a piece of malware into sandbox, it will execute it and then it will tell you if this is malicious or not. But now malware while executing can know that the environment that it's running in is a sandbox or is it a machine, right? There are a lot of ways to know it, because in a sandbox a lot of services will be running. That's one clear indicator. So it will look for active services, because on a laptop a lot of services will be active. On a sandbox only the executable will be running. And similarly there are a lot of other indicators, like a standard laptop would have a public address if it's going to the internet. A sandbox will not have it. That is another thing. So a lot of things on which it can see and then it can evade a sandbox. What I mean by evading sandbox is it will not simply execute. So you'll never get to know if it's a malware for sure or not. Right? So antivirus evasion is something that the malwares have been doing very promisingly, right? Very effectively. So if I talk about McAfee, there is a folder, C, users, application data, local, and then McAfee. This is a folder which McAfee excludes while doing this scan. So all the bad guys know it, and they program their malware to be installed in this particular directory. So if you have EPO, then good luck detecting that malware, because every time you run a scan, your antivirus will ignore this directory. So it's very less likely that the malware will ever get caught, and hence it has evaded the antivirus. Firewall evasion, of course, this could be done very easily. Like the firewalls cannot inspect SSL traffic or encrypted traffic. So you just encrypt your payload and then send it through the firewall, right? As long as it's a valid site, firewall will not detect a thing. So your firewall is evaded as well. So here I've just included 3 appliances which malwares are evading successfully, and that is why you need flows, that is why you need network insights, that is why you need deep security, you need security at all points. So this is my ending slide. Now we have come to the last section, which is the Q&A. I hope there are some questions. All right. So Sipana had some query, never published. Right. So, okay. Okay, Sipana has a valid question. He says that QRadar will check for reputation and if the reputation is not fairly bad, or if it is unknown for QRadar, how QRadar will check with these type of issues. All right. So I'll give you a logical answer, right? So every reputation is as good as the feed it gets. QRadar publishes reputation on the basis of feed that it gets from third parties or from its own threat researchers, right? So if you don't have any reputation, then of course you'll not be able to take a concrete decision. Of course, as simple as that. Right? What you can do is you can rely on third-party threat intelligence, like which some I named before. VirusTotal is one of the widest publicly available threat intel. Then we have Anomaly, right? Then we have CrowdStrike. Then we have Alien Vault, right? So these are threat intels which are available for public. So don't rely on one threat intel. Rather go for multiple threat intels. And if you see something which is, exceedingly bad in all those threat intels, then only take your decision, right? Something could be bad for one person and then good for other people as well. So you cannot entirely take your decision based on one threat intelligence. That is what I think, and that is where analysts come into play. That is what they'll have to see. That is what Watson does for you. Okay? It goes on the internet, searches for all the possible locations for the reputation, and then comes up with an answer. I hope that helps, Deepana. Any other questions on QRadar? If not on QRadar, let's have some questions on cybersecurity. Okay. Describe NBAD and does it come free by default? Okay. And please tell us the name once again, IBM Threat Intel. Okay. So answer to question number 2 is IBM X-Force Exchange. I'll write it down for you. X-Force Exchange. Okay. The answer for question number 1 is NBAD is nothing but the analysis of flows. Okay. So as far as network analysis of flows are considered, flows are not for free. Like EPS, they are licensed. So QRadar license you on EPS, events per second, that you consume. Unlike Splunk license you on, or Splunk bills you on the storage that you consume on day-to-day basis. Right? Splunk is not at all worried about the events per second that you are consuming. You can go ahead and have millions of events per second coming in. So the only point of billing is the storage that you are consuming. While QRadar is not worried about the storage. You can have 2 years of storage and you can use it. You can keep all your data online for whatever reasons you want. The only thing that QRadar bills you on is event per second. So if you have your flows coming in, you can have NBAD, right? And as far as event behavior is or user behavior is concerned, you have UBA for that. So UBA is for free. Network behavior or QNI is for free. That is a mere extension of network behavior, which comes by default. Now, if you buy at least one QRadar console, you'll get 5K FPM for free and 1K EPS for free, right? Plus, if you have any flow processors or if you have any flow collectors, then it depends on that. Right? But yeah, if you buy the basic subscription, then you'll have 5K flows per minute that you can ingest. So you can go ahead and start making your use cases and start working on that. I hope that answers your question, Syed. All right. Any other questions? Guys, feel free to speak. This is your time. We have 10 minutes before we break off. All right. I see that Syed has been satisfied. And any other questions, guys, that anybody has? Feel free to ask anything on not just QRadar, anything that you saw on the slide, anything that you did not understand, want me to go over it again, we can do it. So I'd encourage you guys to ask more and more questions. This is for your own good. If you'll ask questions, you'll probably remember more of it. We'll wait for 5 minutes. If you do not have any questions, we can end the session. I do not see a lot of challenges coming on apart from Syed.
Hello, hi participants. Please feel free to ask any kind of questions you have related to IBM QRadar or in general cybersecurity. We have 5 more minutes for this Q&A session. Please go ahead. Otherwise, we'll just wind up the session for today.
Right, so Narshwan, I think that
Yes.
we are good. People
Yes,
don't
thank
have
you.
questions. So
Yeah.
thank you everyone for attending the webinar. I
Yes.
hope this helps you in your day-to-day activities. Now, I'll be available if you want to ask anything related to this session, which you think that probably for once I did not tell right.
Correct.
So we can talk on that. Probably you can correct me. Plus, if you have any doubts, feel free to connect with me. I always enjoy good conversation, and I'll hand it over to Nashwan here.
Yes. So thanks, Ankit, for conducting the session wonderfully, like always. And thanks to all the participants for joining us in today's session. And hope the session has been useful and informative for all. And just to repeat one announcement, actually, for those who have joined late, we'll be sending out our feedback forms to all the participants. And filling out the feedback is mandatory if you wish to receive access to webinar materials and participation certificate. So please let us have your feedback, and also we will be coming out with more webinars of such kind in future. Just stay tuned, and also write us at info@amstar.in in case of any queries and help regarding our services. So this is it from Mankit and Amstar Technologies. Thank you all. Have a great day. Goodbye.
All right, on this note, I beg your leave, and I will leave you with the feedback form. Please be kind enough to spend 2 minutes and fill the form. That is what I will have at the end of the session. Of course, you guys will have the recording and the learning. Right. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Nashwan.
Thank you all. Yeah. Bye.